there, this is Vincent Martella, and I play the voice of Phineas Flynn on the show Phineas and Ferb. And make sure to check out this awesome interview and read the article. It's going to be a great time.
So welcome, Vincent, and thank you for taking the time to speak with me today.
No, absolutely. Thanks for having me. This is going to be fun. I'm glad we get to talk.
For sure. And obviously, you've been acting from an early age, and I imagine most people might know you for voicing Phineas Flynn on Phineas and Ferb, or you played Greg in Everybody Hates Chris, right? And I suppose what made you want to pursue acting in the first place?
Yeah, no, those are definitely two of my more well-known roles, and they were both a lot of fun. What initially made me, I guess, pursue it was I used to do a lot of impressions as a kid, and I used to do act out a lot of impressions, especially of like Jim Carrey. He was one of my favorite ones. And I just remember I had a teacher when I was young who suggested I did like acting classes or did like local theater. And at that point, because I was a kid, I didn't really realize that was something you could actually do. Like it was a real career, it was something real. Because things like that don't really seem like attainable. And I got lucky just in doing an acting class and doing local stuff that someone saw me and thought I was good and gave me the opportunity to audition for television shows, and eventually that became then voiceover and animation. It was kind of like a stepping stone sort of thing. Like once I had worked in television, it was then easier to audition for other things like voiceover.
For sure. And I suppose like going in the order that you did those projects, right? Everybody Hates Chris was 2005, which just feels like a long time ago right now, doesn't it? Yeah. It
was a long time ago. Yeah, I know, it was a very long time ago. But yes, that was 2005.
Yeah, but I suppose looking back then, long after it's ended as well, like how influential was that show for you as an actor and your growth and that kind of thing?
I mean, it wasn't even just huge on me in terms of acting, which it was, because I was working with a bunch of very talented people who taught me a lot about comedy and just taught me a lot about how the industry works. And whenever you're working on something for, I was working on it for 4 years. That's a long period of time to be doing anything. So obviously it helped me career-wise, but then it also just, they were my formative years of being a person. I was a teenager. I was 13 through 17. So that's a pretty important time in anybody's life. So I think just the experience of working with the people that I worked with, the very talented people I worked with, and meeting a lot of the crew members who I was super close with too. I think those things really started shaping me and letting me, I guess, decide that it was something that I really wanted to continue to pursue, and not just something that I was like, oh, okay, well, this was fun for a little bit and now I'm done. Is, working with the people that I worked with really let me know that, oh, okay, this is something I want to continue to do, honestly.
Yeah, and obviously, of course, right, the show is based on Chris Rock's childhood and adolescence, but was there a real Greg? Did he have a friend that Greg was based on in particular? It was a composite of different people.
Yeah, it was I believe it was almost a combination of both, because he did have someone who was similar to Greg, but I believe he also just based pieces of the character on a couple of people that he knew going to school in Brooklyn Beach. So it was kind of a combination of those things. There's someone he mostly based it off of, but then there are other pieces of it that he took from other people that he knew at the time. But yeah, so it was kind of a combination of those things.
Absolutely. And obviously a character like Greg, or even I know you played Patrick on The Walking Dead for a few episodes there a few years ago, and even Phineas to an extent, kind of smart, kind of almost geeky quality. And I know obviously you've been acted to play different people to yourself, but would you say you shared that with those characters, or were you completely different in real life?
I think the closest thing I probably shared was the awkwardness. As as a teenager, I think I was very, kind of awkward in that sense, which a lot of people are when they're teenagers. But so I think that was the closest thing versus I wouldn't call myself, especially smart. I was very into school when I was doing school. I was definitely a good student. But I think that was probably the biggest similarity between someone like Greg and someone like Patrick. I mean, Phineas is just super creative and super confident in who he is. So though he is very smart, I think that's where the similarities end between the other characters. Whereas, you know, Greg and Patrick were both very kind of awkward and like hard to talk to people. And I think that there was probably a comedic quality that they were looking for on Walking Dead with that character that was similar to what I was doing on Every Day It's Chris.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you mentioned the fact when you were in school, because when I was doing research, I watched a bunch of like old interviews of yours to like not ask the same questions, right? Obviously, I imagine that would get annoying. But someone actually commented on one of them. They went to high school with you and like basically saying, oh, you know, super nice guy, but everyone kept asking to do the Phineas voice. Yeah.
You know, it didn't happen as much as it probably would have a couple years later, because when I was graduating high school, because I went to, you know, a public high school whenever I wasn't working on like Every Day It's Chris, which isn't normal for actors. Is usually actors don't do that, like child actors. But I'm glad I did. I'm glad my parents, you know, had me do that, because I think, you know, being around other students is a pretty important kind of socially thing for kids to do. But I don't think it's as many people would, like, because I graduated high school in 2011. Once again, very long time ago. But right around 2011, like probably like 2011 through 2013 was the biggest that Phineas and Ferb probably
the peak, right? Yeah,
that was probably our peak in terms of popularity. So I think had I been a little bit younger, then it would have been even bigger for the students around school. Whereas like people knew it and it was getting more popular. But then I think had I been 2 years younger, then I think it would have been nuts.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, obviously, like that. Yeah, the Disney Channel movie in 2011, and then obviously Imagine it kind of grew from that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we, you know, that was kind of our peak in popularity was we were able to do that movie, and then we kept going for a couple more years after that. So yeah, I definitely think that was probably 2011, 2012 was big time Phineas and Ferb.
Yeah, and I know, like you've said a lot in the past about like finding like the voice or kind of like landing on the voice for Phineas, but like, did you have anything in particular in mind when kind of putting that together, or just kind of what you thought would match the character that you were shown?
Yeah, no, I mean, I thought it was important because Phineas is described as being so creative and hyper positive and very excited about adventure and about imagination.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do a voice that kind of instinctually made you smile. Like it would be a voice that sounds kind of weird if you heard it sad. Like you'd be pretty bummed out if you heard Phineas sad. So when figuring out a voice, I wanted to do something that was that sounded good, always being very energetic and very excited. So that was something I wanted to make sure I captured in the voice.
Yeah, and obviously, like as we've been saying, like you'd already been like known for Everybody Hates Chris when you got cast as the voice of Phineas, and like was there a lot of people like recognizing you for your voice while both shows were still on? Because I think people are still finding out it was you. I'm still seeing things online like, oh my god, I had no idea it was Vincent Martella.
Yeah, plenty of people I feel like still don't know that, but because I animation takes so long that we were doing Every Day It's Chris premieres in 2005, in like fall of 2005, and then in February of 2006, that's when I booked Phineas and Ferb. That's when we recorded the pilot. And then it was about 2 years until Phineas and Ferb was actually on TV regularly. So I definitely don't think people put that together, as well as because Everybody Hates Chris, I feel like got more popular when we were done with the show. It ended up on a network. I don't know if you have this in the UK. It's called Nick at Night. It's like Nickelodeon's nighttime programming.
I've heard of it. I don't know if we have it or not, but I know what it is. Yeah.
But basically, it shows it's sitcoms that were popular in the 80s and the 90s, and ours was not a show created in the 80s or 90s, but it took place in the 80s, and so they put it in that schedule, and so it was out of place. Like it didn't really make sense to be on Nick at Night at all. But I want to say it was far more popular on Nick at Night than it ever was on the normal network that it was being shown on. And so even after I was done with Everybody Hates Chris, a lot of people were like, "Oh, you must still be shooting it." And I was like, "No, we actually finished that like a year ago." And so the timeline of that was odd. And because of that too, I think once again, people definitely wouldn't associate me with Phineas and Ferb because they were happening on such different trajectories. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean, for sure. I know exactly what you mean, because I figured Everybody Hates Chris started a couple of years later than it did based on when I found it. And I was like, well, 2005. I mean, wow, I had no idea. for sure.
I know, yeah, and I want to say it definitely got a lot more popular by like 2009, 2010, maybe even 2010. Whereas more people would recognize me walking around from Everybody Hates Chris than ever before, even though I was done shooting it. Like even though I was, I was 18, 19 at this point.
Yeah, and actually something I remember back when like Phineas and Ferb was first coming out, they did promos on Disney Channel, and like people like from the show were kind of explaining like who they were playing. And so like I know like obviously like Ashley Tisdale, Alison Stone, and Mitchell Musso, so like people would have known them already from Disney Channel. But like I don't remember ever seeing one for you or Thomas Sangster, and obviously both of you would have been like quite well known, and it kind of like again a big surprise it was the two of you who were doing the voices of the two characters, right?
Yeah. Neither one of us ever really did any promotional material for them early on in the show. I mean, much later on, I did some advertisement stuff for Disney. But yeah, early on, it was definitely not us, and I believe that was also just because those other actors were known from Disney Channel stuff,
Disney
like from Disney Channel movies and Disney Channel TV shows. So I think that was probably an easier marketing thing for on Disney Channel, where it's like, oh, you remember Ashley Tisdale from High School Musical. Whereas I don't think anybody on Disney Channel would have put the connection of like from Everybody Hates Chris, or in Thomas Sangster's case, Love Actually at the time, or or anything.
I mean I know he like recorded his lines that Thomas Sangster is over here in London, so like I find it kind of funny then that you guys would have played stepbrothers for like so many years, but like would you almost be a stranger in some cases, or in some sense?
Yeah, we only met in person twice over the entire 10-year shooting of just the show. We met once in London in 2008 or 2009. I went there for kind of a promotional day of just doing interviews all day. And I was like 15, and he was there, and I met him then. And then I met him once more in Los Angeles. He was there shooting something, and I went to lunch with him. And I was probably like 19 or 20. And that was it. That was the only times I ever met him. I spoke to him a couple times over, basically a telephone feed, at the studio. But that was it. So yeah, we were definitely strangers, but playing brothers the entire time.
Yeah, because obviously people might not know that he's no longer the voice, right? Obviously, David Errigo Jr. has stepped in, and correct me if I'm wrong, because obviously you're doing like a different voice to yourself, but like David is essentially doing an impersonation of Thomas Sangster's actual speaking voice, because or at least a very close like version of it. But like, would you say you've got to know David any better than you did with Thomas? Obviously, David also being based on the same continent as you,
No, I know David much better than I ever knew Thomas, for sure. I remember right when David started working on the show, I was able to meet him afterwards, like shortly afterwards, and then we met again quite a few times before we did our film for Disney Plus. And then we were doing a bunch of promotional stuff together over Zoom, and we just kept in touch in general on social media and just by texting one another. He's a very talented actor. He works in a lot of different projects in animation and live action, and it's cool that I've gotten to have the opportunity to know him, especially after having so long of not being able to know the actor who played Ferb. So it's been fun having David join the cast.
For sure. And obviously without them the show wouldn't be a thing, it wouldn't exist. Dan Povenmire, Jeff Swampy Marsh, the creators, also voiced Dr. Doofenshmirtz and Major Monogram. And they'd obviously been working right in animation like years before Phineas and Ferb. They're trying to sell this concept for years, before they actually got it made. But like, how would you say like your relationship with them has evolved over the time that you've been working with them?
Yeah, they wrote Phineas and Ferb 13 years before Disney greenlit it. So that's certainly a lesson in perseverance and in believing in your idea, because it ended up becoming very, very successful for Disney. And I mean, my relationship with Dan and Swampy has been awesome, because I've worked with him since I was 13, and we've all got to see each other's creative side change in different ways, and different types of performers and writers. And then also they've just been around for huge things going on in my life. They've been around for me becoming a young adult and now becoming an adult. And so just anyone, like, if you're lucky enough to work with people that you enjoy, and become friends with them, doing so for more than 10 years is a long time. So I certainly feel very lucky to have gotten to. I worked with them on Phineas and Ferb, then I worked with them on another show called Milo Murphy's Law.
Yeah.
And so we've had an awesome working and personal relationship, out plenty whenever we can, and keep in touch. And so I certainly feel lucky that I have been able to know them beyond just working with them, but also getting a chance to work with them is great.
Yeah, I mean, I know obviously in a few episodes of the show, like aside from voicing Phineas, you did like the odd kind of like bystander, right, or like an additional voice. I think they call it in the credits, because I remember there's some episodes, and well, I feel like that's him. Like I feel like I recognized your voice. I personally, because I've got Disney Plus, I got back into the show recently, and there was this random character talking to Candace for like 5 seconds. I recognized your voice, and I was like, oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, it totally could have been me. There's definitely been plenty of days where I'd walk into the studio and when you get when you get your printed script, you get your sign-in information. It has it written out on what characters you're playing. Usually it would just say Phineas. Sometimes it would have a list of other ancillary characters where it would be sign number 5 in the crowd, or dude at the coffee shop, and it would just have kind of these random characters. And so that was always fun too, because then they'd show me the art and they'd be like, this is what the guy looks like. I don't know, what do you think he sounds like? And we just kind of play around, and I'd get to do a couple lines. So, I mean, that's one of the wonderful things about working in animation in general, is you get to play in such a fun way, and it can be surprising to everybody. And it's stuff I admire about the most successful voice actors is they can play a million characters, and sometimes you can figure it out. Sometimes you can't, though. So I really admire those people's talent, for sure.
Yeah, and I think some of the really good ones, really great ones as well, they can do different voices, but you can still kind of tell it's them, or like that's a John DiMaggio voice, even though it doesn't sound like another John DiMaggio character kind of thing, right?
Yeah, if you've been listening to their work enough, you can kind of pick it out. Same with Tara Strong, or or Billy West, or Tom Kenny. Is you can kind of go, wait, I think that's a pretty similar cadence to the other characters I've heard. You can kind of pick it out. And so with some of them you can definitely catch it if you're looking for it. But what's fun is so many people don't have the ear for that and haven't been. And so it's always a good surprise, I feel like, when they find out. I remember when I was a kid and I found out that Seth MacFarlane was doing all the voices in Family Guy, all
pretty much
the main characters. And I remember that really blowing my mind, and that was pretty early on when I started working on Phineas and Ferb. And so it was people like that, and people like Billy West and Tara Strong and John DiMaggio, who I really looked up to, being like, wow, if I could achieve that someday. And I'm still working on that. Like, I still have definitely not gotten into the realm with any of these people, but that's the dream. That's the level of expertise that you want to achieve.
For sure. And I kind of missed this angle on that earlier question, because obviously the rest of the cast who were based in the US while you were making Phineas and Ferb, I know you did press with some of them a lot more obviously than those who were further away, but was there anyone you kind of got to know really well while working on this show? Because it's not always the case when you're working in animation, obviously, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've definitely spent a good amount of time with Allison Stoner, as well as Bobby Gaylor. I talk to often when we get lunch, and he plays Buford on the show, and he was also a writer for us. He's an incredibly talented comedian, and we spent a good time together. I've lived in New York for the last 3 years, and he was in New York a lot, and so we hang out there. Same with Malik Pancholi, who plays Baljeet. I saw Malik quite a bit in New York with Bobby, because he and Bobby are very close. So beyond Dan and Swampy, because I see Dan and Swampy all the time.
Yeah.
But beyond that, probably those 3 people is probably Allison, Bobby, and Malik as well. And
Oh, so that's kind of life mirroring out a bit, as opposed to like, because obviously they were all in that group with Phineas, as opposed to like, oh yeah, the guy who was this random character, I'm really close to him, and but you would know who that is, right?
Exactly. And because we all record by ourselves, that makes it even harder in terms of we run into each other in the studio, but we weren't recording together. We weren't spending all day in a booth together. It was mostly by yourself. So a lot of the original times I spent the most time with people was either in passing in the studio or doing press. and then, becoming friends with people, being like, oh, wow, let's go out to dinner. Let's, keep hanging out, and, let's become friends outside of work, which, I mean, I feel like happens in a lot of different,
Yeah.
a lot of different industries.
Yeah, so I saw an interview with Dan and Swampy, and one of them said that the show was kind of a tricky concept to explain, obviously with the inventions and then the side thing with Perry and Doofenshmirtz. So like when you first kind of came onto it, was it like tough to wrap your head? I mean, not even so much tough, but were you kind of like, what even is this? Is it kind of all over the place?
Dan Swampy did something really amazing when they gave me the information about the pilot. When I was very close to getting the pilot, I was going to go in and I was going to record the entire pilot, and they had already booked someone to play Phineas's role. They had already booked an adult, a very talented voiceover actor who works in plenty of things. So, but they had re-listened to my audition, and they were like, we actually think this will be better for the show. And so when I was going to record it, before I recorded it, they sent me a VHS tape, because once again, this was 2005, 2006. And so they sent me a VHS tape, and basically what it was them explaining, it was their pitch. It was an entire pitch of the show, and it was what the show was going to be, and it was the animatic of the show. And it was them doing different voices and reading the tone of the show. And it was them, kind of giving what the tone of the comedy was. And that was incredibly helpful to understand what they wanted, understand what their idea was of like, this is the angle of the show. This is the type of comedy we want. This is the type of mood we want. Now bring your own thing to it, but this is what we're going for. And that was really, really helpful. I watched it many, many times before I went in to record the pilot. And I found that to be incredibly helpful and very smart of them to go, hey, we know this concept, it's a little hard to wrap your mind around at first, but we're going to give it to you the way we pitch it to a studio executive. We're going to pitch it to the actor this way, so you know what you're doing.
For sure. I mean, and obviously, you are an actor, so it could be a very convincing, whatever. But obviously, like even from the early interviews I've seen you do about this show, it's honestly quite endearing how much affection you seem to have for it and for the character. And like, I suppose, like, what has it meant to you over the past 13, 14 years of your life?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely consider it to be the most, not only just my favorite job that I've had, but probably the most important in terms of, I've known this for a while now, but it is hard to describe to people how, what a good feeling it is to see, kids dress up like these characters for Halloween, and kids, they carve, Phineas and Ferb into pumpkins for Halloween, when we just had Halloween a couple months ago, and I've seen people with Phineas and Ferb tattoos, and there are Phineas and Ferb walk around characters at Disney World, and they're in the parade and everything, and to work on something that has that type of impact, especially for something like Disney, and Disney's so important to so many people's lives, to have something that, you see people walking around the theme parks with a Phineas and Ferb t-shirt on. I mean, that's really, really amazing, and that certainly is moving, and it's what you want to do when you do anything artistic, or when you create anything. I would say is you want it to mean something to people. And so the fact that this role and this show that I've been lucky enough to be a part of has meant that much to so many people is, it's amazing. And it is very hard to describe to people what that means to me. It certainly makes me very happy when when fans will send me stuff on Twitter of, them, it'll be like a mom and dad dressed as Phineas and Ferb, and then their baby will be dressed as Perry. Like that's amazing. Is they're, they're passing this thing on that they love now to their kids, and now they're going to start showing their kids this show that meant a lot to them. And it's very cool.
Yeah, I mean, even just from like my own perspective, I guess, because I think maybe an animated show could be even harder to catch on because you don't have like the facial kind of recognition. Obviously, if you had certain people who are really well known, people might gravitate to the show based on that. Whereas obviously that's taken away with something like Phineas and Ferb or any kind of like pop culture, animated series over the past however many years, right? So I think it's a testament to the show that it's able to have caught on so well with just, just based on the voices, based on the writing, and
and I mean, and that's the thing is it's really, really good writing, and it's so many talented writers and animators who make the show what it is and give us, these really great characters to to play around with. And yeah, it is truly a testament to how good of material they gave us, because as you said, yeah, this is based on really story and really, you know, the art, and people can look at it and really fall in love with it, and the music.
Yeah, of course, music. Yeah,
wonderful people in the music department and all of our writers. So there's just so many people who were able to make this something meaningful to a lot of people. And you know, I know there's been like a couple famous tweets about it, that are not famous tweets, but you know, viral tweets about how Phineas and Ferb, because we did so many different genres of music on the show, which was very important to our writers, you know, is that really introduced a lot of kids to different styles and different genres of music that they would have never probably been exposed to. And that's what they were going for. Like, that was intentional. That was not, you know, that was not by accident. That was by design. This is all types of music that our musicians care about, and they want to show more people. And so it's really cool that worked, that meant things to people growing up, as they went, oh wow, now I like these different types of music because of this show. So yeah, it's a very special thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've even heard of people including songs from the show in like big life moments, like "Snuck Your Way back into my heart, right into my heart." I think people have used that as like a first dance at the wedding, which is, I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah, it's wild. It is truly wild. You know, they did one of our, you know, American football teams, for one of our college teams, one of the really popular ones, just recently, about a week ago, did, you know, their halftime show with a marching band who played a couple of our songs, and the stadium was singing them. Like, the stadium of college students who grew up watching the show was singing them. That's amazing. Like that. I don't know many other shows I could have worked on and other things I could have done that could fill a stadium with song like that. And it's really incredible. I still, you know, have trouble wrapping my head around it sometimes, what I was able to be a part of.
I just wonder what would have happened if you asked everyone in that stadium what an aglet was, that they would have known.
You know what? I think they would have. I do not find a lot of people who don't know what an aglet is now because of Phineas and Ferb. Yeah.
For sure. And I suppose kind of in a wider sense, like, obviously, as I said, you've been working professionally as an actor for, I guess, most of your life at this point, right? And I mean, what advice would you give to anyone who, you know, might be kind of struggling to book roles, or like looking to enter the industry? Like, what advice would you give to that kind of person?
You know, the crazy thing is it's easy, I feel like, when you're not working and when you're not booking things, to think that you're alone in that. But so many actors are constantly going, like, we all want to work all the time. And I've even been very, very lucky to have worked on, you know, a couple of shows that gave you consistent work for long periods of time. But in between that, you know, there are huge lulls when you're auditioning for things and getting very close and then getting rejected. And it's a huge industry of rejection. Very difficult with that. But if you care about it enough and you want to perform, do it anyways. You know, whether that's, you know, taking acting classes or doing something locally or shooting your own stuff. Because now with the ability to post your own content on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, the amount of, like, sometimes, you know, I look at, and I'm not very big on TikTok or anything. I don't use TikTok a lot. But some of the videos that I see, the quality of, you know, the editing skills that go into making some of these videos, I think we're going to get like a whole new crop of people who actually enter the film industry, because they now have this basis of understanding, you know, not even basic editing is that's, you know, they're doing a lot of work to edit these videos here. I think you're going to have a lot of people who end up pursuing that because they have an app that allows them to. So I would just say pursue acting any way that you can, and keep at it if you care about it, because that's all you can do is do the best work you can, and people will respond to it at some point.
For sure. I mean, you're completely right. Those are like great platforms. Obviously, the old adage of like, it's who you know. I mean, if you don't know anyone who could, you know, even give you a foot in the door, you know, kind of get yourself out there, you know, kind of make your own way. And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, probably that, you know, that could definitely kind of kickstart someone's growth, and like, you know, try to get the content out and seen, and
as long as you know, have the drive to do it. If you got to do it yourself, do it yourself. But you know, and then while you're doing that, just keep improving on what you're doing.
For sure. And I suppose, obviously, and this is actually to wrap this up, this is my last question. And if I was asking Phineas, I might ask him what he's hoping to do today, but I'll ask you, what are you hoping to do in 2022? Like, as we go into the coming months, what are you hoping to accomplish?
I would love, I would love to be able to keep working in animation and do stuff that work on an animated project where I'm doing something vocally that I really haven't done, whether that's, a particularly evil character or, something villainous, something that like vocally I haven't had a lot of experience doing, because I like the challenge of doing different types of characters. And so, that's probably career-wise. Life-wise though, as many people, I just hope that I get to keep seeing, friends I haven't seen in a very long time, because we've all been so distant for so long. And hopefully in 2022, everyone can stay healthy, and, we can travel again, and we can see people we haven't seen, and really make up for some of the lost time we have,
Absolutely, for sure. I mean, obviously, just to say thanks again, Vincent, for taking the time, and, all the best with everything you hope to, go after, and take care and stay safe.
No, I appreciate it very much, Connor, and to you as well. And thanks for wanting to have this discussion. I always love talking to people about the work. It's been my pleasure doing it. So when people respond to it, it means a lot to me.